Hello everyone, welcome back to another English literature video, and today we are looking at Macbeth, specifically the theme of kingship. Now this is one of the predictions for the GCSE English Literature 2023 paper 1. So I just wanted to go over the theme of kingship and some top tips for your upcoming exam on Wednesday. Now first of all, very important, I've said this many times to my own students, remember the assessment objectives, absolutely crucial. Why? Because the examiners are marking according to the assessment objectives. So we have done a video on this previously. So AO1, AO2, AO3 and AO4. So AO1, you need to have a relevant point and you must refer to quotes. And the quotes you choose must be relevant to the question. You'll be surprised the number of times students pick or select quotes which are irrelevant and therefore they struggle to analyze. So think about it judiciously. Take your time when you pick your quotation because your analysis will be highly dependent on that. AO2 is of course language, form and structure. And specifically, if you are aiming to score the top marks, you must look at the effect. So when you look at AO2, you need to look at the effect. So in simple terms, what is the impact of using that language, structure or form? So you need to explore that in thorough detail. AO3 is your context. So this is essentially the background information, the norms at the time, societal norms, and is there any like hidden message or any sort of hidden message that the writer is trying to convey? And AO4 is of course your spelling, punctuation and grammar. So you need to make sure your spelling is accurate and you're using ambitious vocabulary. So for example, instead of using the word idea, you may use the synonym notion. Instead of using the word emphasize, you may use the word accentuate. So these are some things for you to pick out and write your answer tailored to the assessment objective, because this is according to the mark scheme. And if you can write an answer based on that, you should be able to score the top marks. Now, a lot of the time students are writing answers and they often ask me as well, so how do you include context or where do you include it? Now, in simple terms, to answer that, context, you add it on where you think is relevant and where it's best suited to answer the question. For sure, you have to mention it, but sometimes students force it and it doesn't really flow with their essay. So make sure you plug it in where it's suitable. And you will know that based on what you're writing, where it's best to add it on. And in terms of top marks, what can you do? You may look at alternative interpretations. That is if it's there. If it's not there, then it's completely futile for you to have an alternative interpretation. So if you can show the examiner alternative interpretation, it shows perceptive understanding of the text. And if you can do that, of course, that will demand higher marks. Now, the theme of kingship may appear in paper 1. Now, what I wanted to discuss in simple terms is that kingship and power is in fact linked. So they go hand in hand with each other. So if you look at it in further detail, the captain calls Macbeth brave Macbeth and Valor's minion, which is demonstrating how admired Macbeth is. And not only that, he's powerful not only on the battlefield, but his character too. So his presence is powerful. And why is that significant? Is because it's ironic as later on he murders Duncan in his sleep. So that's quite interesting because you see how ironic that is. And then we also need to remember at the time, in regards to kingship, the country was split with numerous opinions on how it should be run. So that's something that you want to discuss in further detail. Now, we see that Macbeth and his noble attributes, they begin to fade away. So it happens gradually, and what happens as the text progresses is that he becomes more corrupt. And of course, you want to show that when you look at the second part of your essay, where it's presented as a whole. Now, these are things that you want to explore and discuss in your essay. And in terms of comparison and contrast, we need to consider certain things. So first of all, if we look at Duncan and Macbeth, so if we were to put them side by side, So as you can see here, so Duncan versus Macbeth. So here in simple terms, Macbeth reaches this position from murder, from lies and betrayal. And clearly here, the audience see a dichotomy. So a dichotomy here is a good word for you all to use in your essays. So what is a dichotomy? In simple terms, it's a contrast. So the audience see a dichotomy between the way Duncan and Macbeth rule. So clearly we see Duncan's character and his traits are actually contrasted with Macbeth's character and his traits. Now, we will look at Duncan in a few minutes, but what is Shakespeare's message from this? In simple terms, it shows us how power corrupts the minds of men. And when you have a tyrant on the throne, the power brings out people's violent natures. Now, if you take the modern 21st century as an example, often you see powerful leaders who have the ultimate powers. They use it for corruption and they use it for their own benefit. So what is Shakespeare's message? Have we as a society learnt? Or is it a reoccurring dilemma that society fails to acknowledge? So these are things that you want to question. And this, in it, if you think about it in a deeper sense, it shows you how flawed we are as a society. Often leaders who have power, you'd expect them to use that power to make changes, to make positive changes, to have a positive impact. But unfortunately, even now in 2023, we see leaders with power often create corruption and they are selfish. They only think about themselves. So this is something that you want to look out for and discuss. Now, in terms of Duncan, how is he presented in Macbeth? So in simple terms, he's seen as noble, responsible, and an admirable leader. And this accentuates how catastrophic Macbeth is as king. So he's got these positive traits, which obviously the readers admire and respect. And he's clearly seen as a successful monarch. And of course, he has his honourable characteristics. Now, we've got a quote to support this as well. So again, it reads, "Signs of nobleness like stars shall shine on all deservers." So again, what does that show? It shows us him being a benevolent ruler, someone who's kind, someone who's respectful, and he's rewarding those that do good. So automatically he becomes an amiable character within the play. So amiable meaning likable, and like stars shall shine. Sorry, that sounds like a tongue twister, but that in itself is a simile because it represents the divine power, and it suggests they will be rewarded in the afterlife as well as now. Now, we clearly see Duncan is a good king and Duncan is fair. Now, why is that important? Why is that significant? Because a Jacobean audience acknowledged the catastrophic impact of a monarch dying without a heir, which would have created chaos and destruction. Now, just again to elaborate on that further, Elizabeth I died without a heir, and we had drastic changes to the way the country was ruled. And what did Duncan do? He brought security and political stability. However, there are some drawbacks to him as an individual. So what do they include? So the first one is that he struggles to read people, and that's dramatic irony, dramatically ironic because it shows that he struggles to read people, but then he's got these positive, honorable characteristics, and it shows you how, again, to an extent, his flaws and his vulnerability. So yes, that is a dramatic irony as Macbeth is planning to murder him. And another drawback or another flaw of Duncan is that he struggles to learn from his mistakes. Now that in itself can be seen as his downfall, because if you struggle to learn from your mistakes, it shows weakness, and weakness was of course something that would lead to downfall within the play. So what we need to do is we need to consider other areas as well. Now these are just again bullet points and very brief notes for you to consider. It's nicely organized and concise. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, feel free to do so. If you want to copy this out, pause the video, then that's absolutely fine as well. Please subscribe, like and share, as we are going to do a literature paper 2 revision content and predicted questions as well. And not only that, we are also going to do a GCSE English language predictions for paper 1 and paper 2, and that would cover all exam boards. So please subscribe, like and share for more. Moving on to Macduff, he is unapologetic and he wants the best for the country. And quite simply, we see him being patriotic, where we have the quote, "Bleed, bleed, poor country, great tyranny, lay thou thy bases sure, for goodness dare not check thee." Now, that in itself is personifying Scotland and is portraying it as a wounded body. Now, of course, this is something that you can mention in terms of the question. And then also Malcolm, so he takes rightful place on the throne towards the end of the play. So we want to show that transition from the beginning all the way to the end. So he possesses identical qualities to his father, of course, demonstrating compassion and wisdom. And quite simply, he is a symbol of hope. And what we can see is, like, again, this dichotomy or this contrast where Macbeth is seen as an angry god and Malcolm is seen as an innocent lamb. So it demonstrates how Macbeth's strengths results in this severe power imbalance, and that in itself is significant, and it's something for you to discuss. Now, one important thing I wanted to mention and reiterate is the importance of referring to the assessment objectives in your exam. Very important. I've mentioned this at the beginning of the video, so you need to make sure the answer you write is tailored to the assessment objectives. I cannot stress this enough. Now, finally, to wrap up, kingship, the theme of kingship. Why is it important? Why is it significant? Because it's the ultimate goal. It's what is desired. And although it's linked to violence and chaos, it is also linked to creating order and justice, but it depends on who is in charge. So that is something for you to consider and explore in your essays. And that takes us towards the end of the video. I hope you found this video beneficial. Like I said, feel free to make notes on this, pause the video, and use it to aid your revision. All the best for your upcoming exams for English literature. Now, one top tip I would give to all students is answer the questions to the best of your ability and expand upon your answers. Expand and always ask yourself how and why. So how does the writer do this and why does the writer do this? So that's something that you want to consider. And generally, in terms of your GCSEs, I would say in simple terms, answer all questions. So that goes for English, maths, science. Answer all the questions to the best of your ability. You'll be surprised the number of students I see missing out questions. Now, when you miss out a question, you are guaranteed to lose marks. Whereas even if you try, you never know. You could get a mark or two. And guess what? That 1 or 2 marks can be difference between you passing and failing an exam, or even getting a grade 7 and a grade 8. So it literally can be the difference, that 1 mark. I've seen it before. So one top tip I'd give to all year 11s, answer all the questions and be cautious of the time. Time management is key. Okay, a lot of students write amazing, impeccable answers during revision, but when they go into the exam, they capitulate. So you need to make sure you are timing yourself, okay, from now until the exam. And even in the exam hall, keep an eye on the time and pace yourself. Make sure you are working along with the time and you're not falling behind. Otherwise, you will struggle and you will fail to finish all the questions to the best of your ability. And that's that. And just be confident. Be confident. Go into the exam, being proud of how much revision you've done and give it your best shot. So that is all I have to say for today. So I hope you all found this beneficial. Thank you all for your support. I do appreciate it. Do subscribe, as we are going to be creating a lot more revision content for English Literature Paper 2 and also English Language Paper 1 and Paper 2 for all exam boards. So AQA, EdExcel, EduCast, etc. So if you have any questions or suggestions, please drop them in the comment section below. And also, if you found this video beneficial, do leave your comments on the bottom, as I am trying to improve the videos. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and share for more.